happened?
A ship filled to the gunnels with explosives. It came out of nowhere.
And there's more where that came from. I am Elizabeth Ramsey. Surrender your ships to me and I'll spare your lives.
We are Knights of St. John. We do not surrender.
Knights? How quaint. Fire!
Seems like only yesterday that Age of Empires II instantly became one of the all-time best real-time strategy games. That was actually about 6 years ago. At long last, developer Ensemble Studios is back with Age of Empires III, coming off of the successful spin-off that was Age of Mythology. This new game has some incredibly big shoes to fill and also finds itself in the middle of an extremely competitive category that Age 2 helped to create. Age 3 features a new setting in which 8 European nations are fighting to colonize the New World, namely North and South America. And it's also a fully featured game with some amazing graphics and one particularly noteworthy twist in its home city system. But the nuts and bolts of the gameplay don't always fit together all that great, resulting in an experience that in some ways has too much in common with its ancestors and in other ways too little. Make no mistake though, Age of Empires III is really a great example of real-time strategy done well. Despite the new colonial setting, the basic gist of the gameplay really is quite similar to the past games. There are 8 different main civilizations to play. You've got your usual suspects like the British and the French, and the Spanish and the Dutch, and you've also got the Russians and the Portuguese, and the Germans and the Ottomans. And they're all kind of duking it out over the New World in this what-if scenario. Each side has some key differences in terms of how its economy gets generated and some of the nuances of that, as well as some unique military units and unique upgrades. On the gameplay side, the 8 different civs definitely play differently, and there's some other ways in which you can really customize the way that you play, such as by allying with different Native American tribes and gaining their units and resources and things like that. As you'd probably expect, Age of Empires III is a fully featured game, which has a lengthy single-player campaign that spans 3 different acts that trace 3 different generations of characters. The game's also got a scenario editor if you want to make your own maps and stuff, and it's even got some encyclopedic information if you want to learn more about what all these different units and structures and cultures are. There's a whole lot to this game, but in some ways the formula has been simplified from previous installments. You no longer have to create drop sites for resources, so you could just send a woodworker to go chop wood, and basically the guy's going to stand there and chop wood until he's out of trees. He doesn't need to come back to a town center or a lumberyard or anything like that. Later on in a match you could build mills and plantations, which generate an infinite source of food and coin, allowing you to pretty much forget about resource gathering when it comes to the point where you're just focused on building up a big military and trying to crush the other guy. Conquest is really the only option in this game. Previous Age of Empires games allowed you to have a wonder victory condition where you built one of the wonders of the world and defended it for long enough. This time around, though, the only thing you can do is just obliterate the other guy and basically cause mass genocide, so it's not even like you can just destroy his buildings. You got to kill every last unit, which is actually kind of odd and creates some situations where online someone can just sneak units away and force a match to go on for longer than it has to. The thing is, for all the build-up in Age of Empires III, it's the combat itself that doesn't necessarily feel quite right. So even though you've got a lot of cannons and musketeers this time around instead of swordsmen and trebuchets, it still actually feels kind of disturbingly similar to the old games where you see your cavalry have to kind of stop and chop at other guys rather than kind of crush right through their ranks, and your musketeers will all kind of fan out rather than stand rank and file as you'd expect in kind of a colonial era combat. Also, when you're moving units around, you'll notice that they move at the rate of the slowest unit in the group, which looks great when you're just kind of going from place to place and they're all kind of rank and file and looking good. But some of this kind of stuff is kind of awkward. As mentioned, one of the game's really cool new features is the home city, and it's based on the concept that these are colonies and they're all kind of being funded by some city off to the side over in Europe. So the way it works in gameplay is at any point you can click over to your home city, and at some points during the game you can send shipments from your home city to reinforce your colony. It's tempting to go into Age of Empires III expecting too much considering this game's heritage, but if you're expecting some kind of revolutionary experience out of this game, you're not liable to find one here. Instead, this is just a great example of real-time strategy done right, with a few little kind of grievances off to the side. The game's got plenty to it to keep you busy for a very long time, and as with previous AoE games, while it shouldn't make you start ditching all your history classes, it's liable to entice you to learn some more about history while you're playing. Not a bad way to while away many, many hours of your time, all things considered.